What's happening, guys? Today I want to do an episode on can dyslexia be treated, and answering that question for you and going into detail about what does it mean to treat dyslexia and different strategies and different ways people can go about treating dyslexia, if there is such a thing and if it can be successful in the way. So that's what I want to go into, and I'm excited to get into it.
So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be, or in other words, conquer their dyslexia? That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast.
So guys, before we jump into this conversation about seeing if dyslexia can be treated and different ways we can go about that, I want to say that I'm in an airport right now. I was supposed to travel to back to Bangkok to start this new job, and I've been teaching I've been in Thailand for the last 4 or 5 months, and I've been teaching. I've taught at two places, one place called Hoi Hin, one place called Khon Kaen. I had very different experiences, and now I've got a new job in Bangkok. And now this job, I'm still teaching, but I'm not teaching English per se. And one of the big reasons why I'm doing this, and kind of like, okay, take a veer off, so they're teaching sort of like the typical English, to moving to more different things. So basically I'll be teaching kids in a gym, back to what I knew before in the past as a personal trainer, but I'm still teaching kids, and I'll be doing this in Bangkok. The biggest reason why I changed is just because of situations haven't been the most convenient for me to teach like English in schools and for it to go very smoothly. So I thankfully got this job. If I enjoy it, it'll last longer, and if I don't enjoy it, my plan is just to move back to the UK. But anyway, quite funny story. I was supposed to be in Bangkok by now, but I got up at 4:30, travelled to the airport, and I realised that the flight was scheduled a week from now. So it was supposed to leave at 7 a.m. I thought it would be 7 a.m. today, but actually it was going to be 7 a.m. Next week. I was like, oh, that's a bit late. I'm supposed to start work tomorrow. And so the flight is rescheduled for today at 12. So that's in a few hours' time. So I'm sitting in a nice little cafe. I hope to try and get some work done and doing some bits. I thought, why not do a little podcast for you and speaking to you about something about questions saying, can dyslexia be treated? And I thought this is a good segue into the question and to update you kind of on how things are going. This is just one example of you know what I mean, things not going to plan. And I planned the whole day out, didn't expect this to happen. But it's just about expecting when the unexpected, I call it dyslexia, or I call it Theo things happen, how can you make advantage of that, and how can you make the most out of it? And so anyway, it's one little example of it. I'm sure we've got so many little stories of ourselves, of making these silly little mistakes, and it's just getting through them and overcoming them. And, and this is one part of dyslexia that I have not been able to treat, like these silly little mistakes, or not looking over the fine detail of things, and forgetting things, losing things, this and that. This I haven't been able to treat. But if we look into, what does it mean to treat dyslexia? So dyslexia is not like a disease. Dyslexia is not something where you can, between it's like being healthy and being unhealthy. You know, disease, or there's disorders, and there's things where you can clearly mark where, this is it out of the abnormal. This can be in a disease, this can be an unhealthy, or in a sort of in a kind of when I say try and use my words carefully. Not like, okay, there's disease, there's health. We can say there's like a mental lack, or do you mean when someone's colorblind, or when someone has like a blind spot somewhere, and when someone can't do like certain tasks and they physically can't do them? That's not like dyslexia. People might say, oh no, but we can't read or write. No, that's wrong. We can read and write. We just find it harder, and we need to be taught in certain ways because our brain does process things differently. And we don't move in a linear fashion. We remember things completely differently. We like stories. We like things a lot more fluid than having things, okay, remember facts, figures, numbers, dates. And so we just work differently. So I wouldn't say that we can't, so it's a lot more harder to answer the question, can you treat dyslexia? Because it's hard to say, okay, what is dyslexia? What is the treatable cause of dyslexia? And it's hard to define that, because dyslexia is not all like, okay, like cured. You can't cure it. You can't treat it like, okay, it's done or it's not done. It's this or that. You're just born, and you're born different, with a different brain. It's neurodiversity. You're born like have a different brain than others. So it's not a easy switch. But yet, there's no doubt in saying that dyslexia comes with a great deal of difficulties. I'm living through them. I've lived through them my whole life, and I spent a very big portion of loads of days, like majority of my days of my life, dealing with them and trying or working on improving these difficulties that I have. And one thing that I learn is that you have to improve upon them. Now, improving upon them, like if you look at these like in terms of solving a problem. So first off, you have to have the problem. With me, okay, one problem could be remembering names. Let's say that, okay, how can we solve this problem with remembering names? Now, there's 3 ways we can solve any solve any problem there is. It's in one of these 3 ways. First way, we can solve the problem, we can fix it. I can learn to remember names. And the way I can do this is have a strategy. Have a strategy to this. Okay, you need to learn how memory works, learn how my memory works, and then sort of like, and have strategies to it. You can, okay, there's a person's name, remember this person, couldn't remember the person's name for months and months and months. Then I linked her name, Geeta, to a guitar. Then I remembered her name, because every time I saw her, I'd think guitar. Something, what rhymes close to guitar? I remember way back when I was young, there was this girl called Maisie, and for about a couple months, every time I want to remember her name, I go cow, because Maisie sounds like a cow's name. So I go, oh, cow, and then I'll remember, oh, cow's going moo Maisie. It's like a weird linkage. But I'd remember people's names by linking them to certain things. If I really wanted to remember someone's name, I'd repeat it over again, I'd link it to something, and it's like a lot of it's to do with intensity, and working on it is how I would remember the name. So I can help, and I've worked to develop strategies, and I've sort of learned these little memory techniques and this and that to remember names. Now, have I picked the time and consistency to remember all names instantly? No. Could I? Maybe. I think it's a very high possibility. If I put enough work in, I can remember a lot of names. I can train my brain. It's like it's malleable. It's malleable. It can be trained. It's not static. Okay. And what so many people believe, oh, they can't improve their memory. They can't do this because they're old. They've passed childhood or whatever. No, that's wrong. Yes, your brain may slow down slightly, but yet this neuroplasticity is something that can develop your brain so much, and you have it your whole life. Neuroplasticity, you have it your whole life, and people are still learning about it now. In the last couple of years, we've learned so much about this. So I believe in this thing, like, okay, I can't remember people's names. I have worked on it. I know how to remember someone's names. If I desperately want to, I still find it hard. So the way I've done it, the way I'm sort of getting around it, okay, the first way I could fix it, I've worked on fixing it, hadn't fixed it fully, but I fixed it to a certain extent where I have some sort of control over it, rather than having no control over it. First way is fixing it. The second way is what I've done mostly with this problem is working around it, finding workarounds around it. Like, you mean, like, and it's not about, if you don't know how to spell, like, you don't try to learn how to spell every single word in the English language, you just have workarounds. Okay, there's people that can help you spell things, there's spell check, there's, can you have it listened back to, there's all these different strategies that you can work on, so this problem of you not being able to spell wouldn't be as big a problem anymore. The biggest thing with names is finding workarounds. The workarounds, okay, if this is a name I'd need to do, I'd write it down somewhere. I'd look back and do it. Another workaround is asking the people around me, saying, okay, telling everyone, look, I had problems with names, and you say you have problems with names. Like, I appreciate you have problems with names and you don't remember other people's names, but when I say I don't remember people's names, it's a different story. Like, I get so annoyed when I say, oh, I'm terrible with names. Everyone goes, oh, I know how you feel. I'm terrible with names too. I'm the worst with names. No, you're not. No, I'm sorry. You're worse with names for a normal person. I'm worse with names for like, at Olympic level. Anyway, like, I tell everyone I'm bad with names, like, sorry, I really don't mean it. And I just sort of like act casual, and I'll just, oh, what's his name? I forget it. And I'll ask the person next to me, what's his name? I have these workarounds of remembering people's names. So second way, you have a workaround, or the third thing you do is you change your view about it. Okay, I don't remember people's names. I've worked in it. I say, like, you just change your view. Like, okay, there's no workaround. If you can't fix the problem, you just change your view on it. Okay, I don't remember people's names. Is that a bad thing? No. Change your view on it. I haven't, because I think that's a really important issue. But like the weather, you can't change the weather. If you can't have workarounds on the weather, learn to enjoy the rain. Learning to enjoy when it's not good, and change your view upon it. Maybe, like, if you can't spell and like you haven't found a workaround, change your view on it. Like, oh, people don't think I'm dumb, or people don't think I'm stupid, or it's not the worst thing in the world. So you change your view on it. So when we look at dyslexia and we look at, okay, can we treat dyslexia? We forget about the word dyslexia. We have to look at the symptoms, the negative symptoms. Obviously, there's positive symptoms. But in this case, treating it is focusing on the negative sides of it and working on solving these problems of remembering people's names, of organisation, of completing certain tasks, reading, writing, of navigation, of this and that, and all these little parts that we can find hard with. And it's like, okay, this is the problem. How can we treat this? It's a problem that may be, okay, problem caused by something called dyslexia. How can we treat this? And we go about treating it any way we can. There are three solutions of doing it: fixing the problem, working around the problem, and changing your view about the problem. Now, I believe every problem in the world can be solved with these three strategies. Now, with dyslexia, about 15% can be solved by fixing a problem, by you getting better at a skill where this won't be a problem anymore. A lot of times, most of the times, you're dyslexic, your brain works differently, you won't be able to completely wipe this out, so it won't be a problem anymore. And that would require work. But most of the times you have to find ways around problems. When you can't read, when we find it hard to read, we find it hard to write, when we find it hard to do certain things, we have to do our best to find ways around it. Okay? Have to find our best to find ways around it. Get friends, tell people, find software. And the good news about it is, because of software, because of how neuro-friendly everything's getting, especially technology, and especially where it's going, there's going to be more and more solutions from it. And now, the way I look at it, okay, there's devices like iPhones or whatever you can speak into. There's devices, even a word, you can get it listen back to you. If you can speak into something and it can listen back to you, that's kind of most of your reading and writing problems sorted. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it can be aggravating and annoying. And yes, it's slow. Speed isn't on our side, but yet accuracy is getting there. That solves 90% of all the reading and writing challenges out there, in the workplace, in this, in that. And so we want to find these solutions that really help us a lot. Another thing is, say, like, I remember one thing I found hard with is retaining information. I remember when I'm at work, my boss would go, like sort of the boss of the school, like a big school, and this person, like the head teacher of a big school, so I kind of like look up to him, like not look up to him in a certain sense, like okay, show respect. He doesn't really spend a lot of time with me. If he wants to speak to me, you want to listen and take what he says, do it in a sense. And like when he says something to you, it would say, okay, do this. I'd be like, okay. And then I would get nervous. I'd remember it. I'd know exactly what I'm doing when I'm speaking to him. And as soon as I turn my head, I'd forget it. Fuck. Then, censure it. But then I'd go back to it. And then basically what I've learned to do, I'd try and go back to him and say, what did you say? And I'd write it down. And I'd take notes about it. So I would know exactly what he said. And then I'll make sure that when he says something to me, I'd repeat back to him in my own words to make sure. And do whatever I can to learn. But I know that, like, I would have to have something written down or a list of things to do before the meeting's over or before the conversation's over, otherwise I'd forget it. And it's learning about, okay, what are my weaknesses and what can I do to overcome them? And it's all about treating dyslexia. You can't treat the whole dyslexia, you have to treat the individual parts of it to help you. And can you treat dyslexia? No. Can you treat the individual parts of it? Yes. And how can you do that? Yes, I would say if you're like very new to this, especially dyslexia, okay, you want to learn reading and writing. If you are struggling in certain areas, like you want to get a course, you want to learn this, definitely look into getting a tutor, getting this. But like, it all comes down to this. It all comes down to you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to learn, find the resources out there. I know for me, reading transformed me. This little reading thing, I exploded my reading. I know I mentioned this a lot of times. I'm going to mention this a lot of times in the future. I just want to get a few things done, a few things worked on and like ironed out, details ironed out, so I can kind of, I want to explode this place with something that's transformed my reading, so I can help as many people as possible. But I think that will require a bit of work to do that, rather than I'm learning how to run before I can walk in a certain sense. So yeah, guys, I hope that makes sense. And next episode I want to dive in it deeper about, okay, how can you sort of what's the first step, second step, third step onto, because I've run it a bit long, onto treating your dyslexia. And that's you doing it yourself. And then obviously if you find help about it, but I want to give you a little bit of how-to guide to do it yourself, maybe. I hope that will be useful. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you all again soon, and bye-bye.